Hi everybody, so today I will be teaching you about careers in instructional design. So since we're all in this class and since it's pretty much based around the field of instructional design, I understand that there are also some other individuals who might not be in this specific program. However, since we're in this class, I'm sure most of us hopefully have done some research with the field in general, but when you do some research, there are things that might not necessarily be true 100%. So one of the things I wanted to include was a few myths, or were a few myths, regarding just the field in general, the ID field in general. So the first one is that instructional design puts information in front of people. Now that's true. We present information to our learners or our students. However, we more so make sense of the information. And the reason I say that is because a lot of our job has to do with organization and how to properly and effectively shape the course or the lesson to, make teaching overall effective and learning overall just a little bit more easier for our students. But that's one of the myths. Another one is that using technology for training can significantly increase learning. Now, it's true, but to a certain extent. And the reason I say that is because, for those of us who have taken Learning Design 6010, just the intro class for this program, we learned that technology is good. Technology can be effective for instruction. However, if you use too much of it, if you use it as a crutch, it could be detrimental. And another thing that I read with one of the myths, or with this myth specifically, is that you have to make, if it's an e-learning course, I should specify. If it's an e-learning course, you want to make it as closely related to a traditional in-class setting as possible. Or if you're teaching somebody, say training for a new job, you want to make sure that they can transfer those skills effectively to on-the-job experiences or to the actual environment that they're going to be placed in soon enough. So we want to use technology, but we don't want to use it too much. And if we do, we want to make sure that it's related as closely as possible. And the last myth that I researched was that instructional designers should create materials that address as many learning styles as possible. Now, kind of like what I said for the last myth, for those of us who have taken Intro to Learning Design, one of the things that we learned is that everybody has their own different learning style. We as educators have our own different teaching style, and the same goes, like I just said, for our learners. So it's very beneficial to recognize that there are different learning styles. However, it might not be the most beneficial or advantageous to a class or a group of students because everyone's different. Having this one-size-fits-all approach might not be the most effective for our instruction. So learning, researching our target audience and seeing what everyone has in common can, increase overall teaching and learning, dramatically. And catering your teaching style to your group's learning style or the general trend of the learning style can help dramatically. So the overview of this, I'm going to explain why instructional design is important. Why is it an emerging important field? Next, I'm going to talk about the desired skills and competencies that companies and industries are looking for instructional designers to have. Next, I'll go into the categories and specific positions or examples that we as instructional designers could be a part of or could obtain at some point. I'm going to discuss the wages and how much instructional designers get paid, the general outlook and trend of just the field in general and where it's progressing towards or where it's kind of going towards. I'm going to have a little bit of a guided practice, just a little Google form that y'all can fill out, and then a recap and conclusion. So the learning outcome that I have for this lesson. At the conclusion of this lesson, students, you all, will be able to define learning design, the skills needed to become an instructional, or I should say an effective instructional designer, numerous positions one could obtain in the field, and the outlook of where the instructional design field is progressing towards. So why instructional design? Like I said before, most of us are in the learning design program. So hopefully some of us have done research already as to why we want to pursue this field, why we want to gain the knowledge and the education to make ourselves successful. So the first bullet I have, curriculum, content, and more importantly the strategy behind that curriculum and content is created and implemented by us. Now, the thing that sets instructional designers apart, I mentioned this briefly before, is that we have to find the right flow. We have to have a good organization of how to properly present the information. We have to think about Gagne's 9 instructional events. We have to stimulate that prior recall. We have to present the information, provide guided feedback and practice, and then hopefully, if all works well, we can have a successful transfer of those skills and competencies and attitudes that we taught our learners and have them successfully transfer them to their job or their future position. So learning design or instructional design is very, very important because we go that extra mile of, instead of just presenting the information, just putting a whole bunch of files and resources and documents out, we do it and we think about it logically and methodically to help our learners, learn a lot more knowledge and a lot more attitudes and skills overall. So something else that's really good about instructional design is that it's a growing profession. So the Economic Model Specialist International, or EMSI, estimates that the instructional design field will increase overall by 14% through 2025. Now that's a very, very big jump. With the resource that I looked at for this, they also stated that this is the same growth for all occupations. So the industry needs us. They need more instructional designers like us to properly and effectively implement whatever they want to teach. On the job training, could be just a class in a higher education institution, and I'll go into more specific positions later, but there's a lot of reasons as to why this field is increasing and growing. So another thing is that instructional design has a great number of opportunities and positions that can align with one's interests. Now, the good thing about us is that we're all different in our own certain way. We all have different interests, different things that spark our passion, spark just our overall advancement with the field. And the one good thing about instructional design is that there are so many avenues and so many different opportunities that we could find ourselves in and that we could obtain that could really cater to our interests and to benefit our learners, whatever the learner may be, benefit them the most. So some desired skills and competencies. Now, we've read in the textbook this semester, or this half of the semester, that there are numerous beginner, intermediate, and advanced competencies that an instructional designer must be able to understand and really execute throughout their future instruction. So I'm not going to go through every bullet that they have, but some of the basic competencies is you have to have an ability to think, write, and communicate orally. You have to have good or advanced technical writing skills. You have to be good at public speaking and presentation skills. You have to be motivated. You have to show leadership, negotiation. You have to have critical thinking skills, and that's very, very important. Now, hopefully, with this program and with the classes that we have all taken in the past, we've built a solid foundation of critical thinking skills. And with instructional design, it's very, very important to use those skills and that out of the box thinking to properly deal with whatever situation or whatever project or task is presented to us. So there's a lot of things that the industry and companies look for, but with formal education and with experience, maybe starting with the smaller projects and working up to big projects, we can gain in one way or another these skills that everyone's looking for. So some categories of instructional designers. So the first one is going to be a lead designer. So this is the person that is kind of the boss of whatever project a company or class or school is implementing or creating, really. Then you have a consulting designer. This person is more so short-term for the whole project. They could be employed by a certain company for a few weeks, a few months, maybe even a year or two, depending on how big the project is that they wish to complete and they wish to implement. The lead designer tends to be more long-term. They have their place in the company, whereas consulting designer tends to be more short-term and not so much freelance, but they can jump around from company to company or whoever needs an instructional designer to help them. Then you have associate designer, assistant designer, and then designer intern. So the reason I listed the categories is because a lot of these names on this slide at least are very generic. Each company or each business could have their own specific business title or position title, but they all follow the general totem pole or hierarchy of having, the lead designer being the number one person. They're at the top who overlooks everything. Then you have the consulting and associate designers and maybe some interns and kind of go down along from there. So some positions that one of us can hopefully obtain in the future with an instructional design background. So the list goes on and on, but I just included a couple of the more well-known and more popular positions that we could obtain. So we have Chief Learning Officer, a consultant, kind of like what I was saying before. You can be more or less a freelance type of individual and kind of jump from company to company or just consult on certain things, whatever your specific background or expertise is. Distance education specialist, a professor at a higher education institution, a senior researcher, a technology innovation specialist, or a training manager. Think about on-the-job training, or think that, for example, there's going to be a new McDonald's opening up, and you have to have someone that's able to properly train the new employees, and that could be, a very good position for an instructional designer or a person with that type of background. So some of the wages with instructional design. So the mean for instructional design in general is roughly $78,000 a year, which is pretty good. And that's even with just starting out. The starting out wages is well above $50,000. So, hopefully people pick their career or their interests based on their passion for it. And of course, money helps, but one good thing is that with us, we have this great passion for education, for teaching, so having a nice paycheck at the end of it or along with it is just an added bonus. So Ohio specifically is ranked 32 out of 50 for all of the United States for the wages or for a salary for instructional design. So if you look to the right-hand part of your screen, you can see at the top photo, it explains the median pay. For the education, more so people need to have a master's. Now I'm sure there are some positions that can kind of go around that, but master's is usually the big requirement for our field. So work experience and related occupation could be up to 5 years or more, which kind of sounds like a lot, but you got to think there's a lot of components, a lot of things that are going within in our field. There's a lot of moving parts. So number of jobs, this is really, really good for us. There's 163,200 jobs, more or less, regarding instructional design. So there's a great need for us, which is great because job security is very, very big when we think about, what we want to do for our future. And then the bottom portion or the bottom picture that I have just kind of restates the information that I just put in the bullets. So the national average is around 78,000, where the lower part could be 30, or the lower half could be 38,000, and the upper half being upwards of $126,000. So the money is very, very good for our field because we have a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience and skills that can benefit, a lot of people and a lot of organizations. So I know that was just a very, very brief overview, but the next thing I would like you all to do is just fill out one of a Google form that I created, and just to help us or help you all solidify the information that I presented. You can give me any feedback on my presentation skills and everything like that. So just a quick recap and conclusion for everything. So instructional design is a very, very important field. In addition to us presenting information, we think about the organization, we think about our audience, and we think of a lot more variables than just a non-instructional design background educator. In addition, the field itself is looking very, very good. The trend is increasing. They need us. There's so many positions that are available to us once we receive that education, once we get that experience. There's many places we could find ourselves in, And of course, the pay is very, very good as well. But there are a lot of ways that we as educators could benefit our learners. So thanks, everybody.